Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you from parts unknown in Virginia with one Adam Ship, my money shares. We're going to talk through a Saturday slate, split slate action, and the sites are back to being different once again in the early slate. So we'll talk through that. We have a solid looks like a 9-game main slate. There's a double header. It'll be interesting to see what happens with pitching. That is going to be Cincinnati at St. Louis. That game also was postponed on Friday night, so perhaps it's a double header. Usually they don't do that, but these guys are division rivals. Perhaps they will get one in before the end of the season. Adam, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well. Baseball's been not as terrible as it has been for the past month over the last couple of days. So that's been nice. Excited for the weekend. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Finishing up drafts. 'Tis the season to get that done. I'd been hoping to do some best ball stuff for the site, but doesn't look like I'm going to get that done. But I am in there in Slack. I've completed 160 best balls. So I've been talking about different percentages, different strategies that I've been doing there. I've got 50 more, 5-0 going on right now. They're all slow drafts, but down here in Virginia Beach for the weekend. So I'll probably do a few after the half marathon on Sunday of the live variety. So that'll be a fun one. And I'm going to be doing that over on Yahoo. Presenting sponsor Yahoo. If you have not yet signed up, go to any of the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks articles. Third paragraph will give you the instructions and link and promo code on how to sign up and get your initial deposit bonus matched up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, YSRPs. Those are available for immediate use into any contest. Adam, they've got the $1 million baller over there for Week 1 NFL. $25 to get in, 10 entry max, 100,000 to first. This is going to be wild. I'm curious to see if it fills because getting 10 entry max to fill for $1 million is going to take a lot of gamers. Have you thought about your strategies? Are you going to be playing that one?
Yeah, definitely prioritizing that one, prioritizing fantasy draft. They have a great tournament over there for Week 1. And then DraftKings actually has a good structure too, and they're $9. So I'm really excited for NFL, mainly for that reason. You know, it's the tournaments are obviously huge, so like it's hard to get first, but it's nice that there are sites at least running good payout structures.
Yes, that's going to be the key. Hopefully, they continue to do that at least for football. But everybody likes the big dollar numbers. They can get them in football and flesh out the payout structures. The rest of the sports, well, that's why they're top heavy. All right, let's jump into the slate. We will use DraftKings here as our guideline. They are doing the first 5 games. FanDuel doing the first 3 games. Yahoo, of course, does every game remaining on the slate whenever they start their contest. So they have all of them, including that. Let me double check, but they do have the double header almost. Yep, they've got both of them in. Those are always fun because essentially how that works is, let me call up and just make sure. If I were to look at someone like Sonny Gray, he has 2 lines. He has Sonny Gray at 115 and Sonny Gray at 715. So that's a fun way to do this. I've never actually played the same player in the lineup twice, such as you really only can do it with an outfielder because that's the only eligible because a pitcher isn't going to pitch twice. But that is kind of a fun little wrinkle there. Starting off here in the first game, we will focus on the pitching side of things. We have New York and hosting the Oakland Athletics. Domingo Herman is going to be taking on Homer Bailey. Herman been solid this season, but we are paying a premium at $10,500. Feels relatively fair, Adam. Even if you look at his 4 ERA, his 1.1 WHIP, the strikeouts 136 in 127 and a third innings. That is nice. That's what we're paying for. On the other side, Homer Bailey all the way up to 8,200. That's down from his last start. But that's a kind of a function. He's had marginal results, but that's kind of him over his entire career. Do you like either of these guys at their respective price points?
Hang on a second. My screen just went black, so I can't see stats.
Oh, well, that's no bueno. So let me see what I can pull up here in the meantime. We always could put this one in the redo bucket, but let's see here. Riveting, I know, but I'm working on it.
No, sorry. I went to switch screens, and it just didn't show up for me.
Are you back?
Just about.
All right. So in the meantime, I will do a little chatting here. We've got if we go over here and look at Domingo Herman, he is since the beginning of last year, he has a 4.3 xFIP. That's very solid. He's been very good against righties and lefties, actually, from a hits and on base perspective. From an batting average, it's the power that kind of gets to him. So that's okay. We'll give him a little bit of a mulligan on that one. But that is the one thing that the Athletics do have, even in their current iteration. They've got a lot of power. Chapman, Olson, Gonham, even Jerks and Profar are all there. Feels to me like this would be more one-offs or pairings, doing a little home run hunting rather than anything else. Is the world back in your vision, Adam?
Yeah, I can see again. And yeah, I agree with you. Ramon's a good pitcher, but not a great matchup against the A's. They do have a lot of power, not a lot of strikeouts in the lineup.
All right, and then on the other side there, Mr. Homer Bailey feels like someone that I guess we want to target just because it is the Yankees. They've got, of course, Torres, Judge, Gregorius back in the lineup. He had missed a few days. We'll have to see if Gary Sanchez is in. It'll be a day game after a night game, but they may earmark the DH spot for him. Luke Voigt back in action. That's a tough lineup there. One I would like to target with those particular guys. Any thoughts on Bailey as an SP2?
Pretty brutal spot against the Yankees. They got Luke Voigt back too, so that's another really good hitter in the lineup. Pitching on the slate overall isn't great, but I don't really see getting to Bailey.
All right, so let's look at our next game. So this is going to be the game one of the double header. So that is St. Louis, and it is Power and Dakota Hudson. They were the matchup on Friday. Those guys are both pretty good. It feels hard to know if they're going to skip them, if they'll work them in, etc. So MLB.com already has them on as their game one starters. The game two starters, all they've done is bumped what was the game one starters, which is Tyler Mahle and Michael Wacha. We'll have to see what's going to happen here on this one. Let's just for fun assume it is Bauer and Hudson. Do you want to recap any of the analysis you had on that pairing today?
Bauer would be okay. His salary is still the same on DraftKings at 10-4. He is probably better than that price tag. I would rather roster him than Herman. I would rather roster him than Cole Hamels. So, yeah, if it's Bauer, then I think that's a good play.
All right, so I'm just checking it out. So Bauer is going to be 96 on FanDuel. On FanDuel, Hudson is 87. And let's compare that. Let me filter that compared to the other guys on there. Domingo Herman is 94, and then it's just a bunch of also rans because we only have 3 games on the FanDuel slate. So in addition to Herman and Bailey, it's Cole Hamels and Zach Davies. I don't want either one of those guys. So it looks like a Domingo Herman day, maybe a Bauer day. You'll have to decide what you want to do. See where popularity is. Again, just 3 games on the FanDuel slate. Wrapping up the 3 games there on looking to DK, we have Cole Hamels 9,300, Zach Davies 5,800. Now Davies at that price becomes a little bit more viable. This is actually going to be the 5th time he has started against the Cubs this season. They have sort of I guess had his number. He's got a 5.1 ERA, 1.4 WHIP going against them compared to his season numbers. Those are worse, but he's been kind of his surface numbers have been pretty good this season. His underlying numbers, well, still leaves a lot to be desired. Either of these guys on the 2 pitcher sides for
you? Davies really doesn't offer much. Hamels is a bit better in the way of strikeouts, but I think a lot really does depend on who's pitching in that Cincinnati game because, like, if Hamels is 9,300 and Bauer is 10-4, I would just rather get to Bauer.
Yeah, and that's really all that needs to be said for that one. Just because Milwaukee can be pretty good against lefties. Let's see, how many times is Hamels? Hamels says this will be the 4th time he's going against them. He's been pretty solid, but never really want to target against Milwaukee. Going on to game 4 here of the early slate. Now we're leaving FanDuel behind. Here's where I have some interest, particularly on DraftKings. You have Houston at Toronto. We have Clay Buchholz back in our lives. Just apologies going out to the Toronto fans. Your pitching is woeful. He has allowed 6 home runs in his 30 innings of action. That's not good. If he were to pitch 200 innings on the season, he would be flirting with 40 home runs allowed, which would be the most in the league. On the other side, Framber Valdez, Adam, I love his strikeout rate. He gave us everything and then some in his last start. We can't always expect something like 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 home run allowed. That was his only earned run, 2 hits allowed. That was the 8 strikeouts. That was against Anaheim. I was all in on that one, so that was a lot of fun, well beyond my wildest expectations. I want to go back to him. I'd be happy with 15 DraftKings points in this situation against Toronto. The Toronto youngsters are good, but they're up and down. They do have tremendous potential, but they are lacking in some experience, so they're going to go into funks now and then. The $5,500 price point that seals it for me, Adam. How do you feel about Buchholz, if any interest? And then, am I crazy with Valdez?
Zero interest in Buckles, and I'm with you on Valdez. I don't expect his last start to be the norm. He struck out 38% at AAA this year, but that's never been something that he really does in the major leagues. He last year struck out 22.1%. This year he's struck out 20.9% in the majors. But regardless of all that, maybe he improved at AAA, maybe something clicked. That's certainly possible. But either way, he's $5,500. There's a really, really, really big gap between his AAA numbers and what his major league numbers would have to look like for him not to be a good play at 5,500.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we're on to the final game of the DraftKings early slate. This is the first game of the FanDuel early slate. I misspoke. It was the very early slate we were talking about for those other 3 games, but they're going to skip that Houston and Toronto game, pick it back up with the 4 o'clock game and the 6 o'clock games. So this one we've got Steven Matz versus Jason Vargas. This is like the 2 perfect guys to go against each other because you can never figure out what either one of them is going to do. I have a little bit more belief in Vargas that I don't ever really want to go against him. Occasionally, I will roster him. Matz is the other way. I usually don't want to roster him. Occasionally, I will go against him. This is like the perfect. You're trying to push 2 magnets together here, and you just can't get them close to each other. I don't know what I want to do with this one other than potentially avoid it. A lot will have to do with lineups, what's coming out. I guess if I had to pick a side, might be Vargas, and that's for the $1,200 savings on draft. What do you got?
I think I would prefer Matz. I just think he's a decent pitcher. Vargas, I guess, is a decent pitcher too, but Matz, I think, gives you a little bit more in as far as upside goes. I don't love the salary though. I don't love the matchup against the Phillies. I don't love the matchup for Vargas either. I would ideally not roster either guy. I would just get a bunch of like Trevor Bauer plus Framber Valdez or something like that. But I think they're both guys that you can kind of just like mix in. If you're playing 150 lineups, they're okay.
All right, let's quickly look over here at FanDuel. What do they got on their pricing? So Vargas 63, Matt 86. Does that change your mind at all? Matt Boyd is 88 going against Minnesota as the other option.
Yeah, that's probably too cheap of a salary for Vargas.
Right. Let me get the DK stuff open up here for the main slate, but let's talk about the other 2. Let's talk about the 6 o'clock games here real quick. Let's just start in with Minnesota and Detroit. You've got Martin Perez going against Detroit. Congratulations, Perez. If anything's going to get you back on track to your early season performances, it is a matchup with Detroit. On the other side, Matt Boyd. Yikes, he is a good pitcher, but lefties going against Minnesota. They are essentially a top 3 team in every pertinent category on offense, right there with Houston and surprisingly Arizona. Either of these guys intrigue you on a 3-game FanDuel slate?
Brutal matchup for Boyd, obviously, but with it being a 3-game slate, he's the most talented pitcher, so there's some appeal there, and the salary is not too expensive. Perez is interesting just because he's facing the Tigers.
All right. Oh gosh, DraftKings does have a little 2-gamer here. Good God. Let's see what they are over there. Boyd 10-2, Perez 74, and then we've got probable opener Diego Castillo with probable long reliever Jalen Beeks, and then you've got Zach Plesac. Ugh. Well, my thoughts are Boyd, Plesac, Perez would be how I would rank these three. I don't want
I'd
to do
go
Tampa Bay.
Boyd just for the talent, and then Perez for the matchup, and then Plesac.
Okay. All right, if you're playing those short slates, of course, we do have projections. We have all the good stuff behind the paywall. If you've not yet signed up for Osmo, what are you waiting for? You can utilize the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, to receive 50% off any 1 month package. That does include Fantasy Cruncher. So if you want to take that for a spin here during the NFL season, now would be the time to do it. Moving on to our evening slate, Adam, we have the Nationals kicking this off at 7:05. We've got, let's see, 4 7 o'clock games. We've got 3 8 o'clock games and 2 9 o'clock games. Starting off with the Nationals, it's Steven Strasburg going against Pablo Lopez. Strasburg will be facing the Marlins for the fourth time. His first three starts, he's gone 22 and a third innings against them. 29 strikeouts, just allowed 4 earned runs in those 22 innings. More impressively, Adam, just 4 walks in those 22 innings. Feels like Strasburg's going to be the leader in the clubhouse on this one. We do have a game in Pittsburgh, so that's going to make decisions interesting. But how do you feel about Steven Strasburg?
A game in Coors, you mean?
I'm sorry, what did I say? A
Game in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Sorry, we have a game in Coors with Pittsburgh. How's that?
Yeah,
let me complete those thoughts. Adam, I had the most lovely, gigantic ice cream on the boardwalk. It was a giant, or I guess it's frozen yogurt, whatever it is. Anyway, banana flavored, huge waffle cone dipped in chocolate with. Oh, this is awesome, with peanuts around the waffle cone. Let me get this phone call here.
Okay, so I'll talk about Strasburg while you do that. It's obviously a good spot for Strasburg going against Miami. They have a very right-handed heavy lineup. They have plenty of strikeouts in their lineup. It's not in Miami is the only negative here, but a 3.3 implied run total for Strasburg. He has a 28.8% strikeout percentage, which is one of the highest on the slate. He has, one of the best K minus BB percentages. He has one of the best Sierras. Just a really, really good pitcher. The only issue is that he is 11,200 on DraftKings, and you do have that game in Coors, as you mentioned. So it's not the easiest to get up to an expensive SP1. Looking at the bottom of the pitching range, there's not great cheap options either, so that makes it tough.
All right, you gotta love being in a hotel and randomly the phone rings when you aren't staying down with anybody. My wife's in the other room. Well, it's like it's got a little sitting room area here, which is where I'm recording. Who knows? It was probably the front desk or something. But why are they calling us at 8:30? I don't know. Pablo Lopez there. Sorry, I was trying to figure that out. He did get a lot of pitches in his last one. 86. He's 7,200. Tough matchup against the Nationals, unless they come out with some sort of watered down lineup, which why would they? Because they're still in the thick of the wild card races. They're leading it. Probably no Lopez for me. Moving on to our next game here. Who is supposed to be starting for Baltimore on
Dylan Bundy.
I thought he was going to go on Friday. What happened?
Means went on Friday.
Oh, Means went on Friday. Goodness. Why did I think it was going to be Bundy?
Well, because it was going to be Bundy, but Means had been away from the team for a family emergency, and so he had missed his start or whatever.
Thank you. And for those saying, Emek, I can't believe you didn't know that. I was in the car for 5.5 hours driving, and I wasn't looking at the internet, so it makes sense. Yes, I had 4.9% of John Means tonight, but last night when I was writing the
article, you had 4.9%.
I don't want to talk. Well, you tell the crowd what you had.
52.
Okay.
I don't know yet how that game's going to go, so one of us is going to sound really dumb.
Well, that's okay. And I had 50% of free. Tell the people what you had.
94%.
All right, so there we are. Adam and I living in different worlds here. Back to this one. Dylan Bundy, if there's going to be a matchup to take him, this would be it. Of course, he leads the league in home runs over the last 2 seasons with 65. No one is even close. 7,300 on DK. That is the gate or the ticket for entry here. He's already faced Kansas City once. If we get even half the performance that he had last time, 7 innings, 7 strikeouts, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 23 DK points. If he gets us 17 DK points, I'm doing cartwheels. I think there's upside here against Kansas City. This is your boy, Adam. What do you got?
Yeah, it's a pretty good spot for him. I think that the top of the order is scary. I think Jorge Soler and Hunter Dozier are both really, really good plays. Soler, I believe, just hit a home run on Friday, so it would be a couple games in a row if he hits another one. But it's a good matchup for him against Bundy because Bundy does give up a lot of power. But once you get top part of the order, it gets really, really ugly. You get a lot of strikeouts with guys like O'Hearn, Vioria, Starling, Phillips. These guys all have massive strikeout percentages, and Bundy's price tag is reasonable. There's bats that we're going to want to pay up for. So I think that it's a pretty good spot for him.
Did you know Jorge Soler second in the American League with 37 home runs behind Mike Trout's 43?
Didn't know he was second. Didn't know he had a ton.
That's a lot. NL, just real quick: Bellinger and Pete Alonso, 42 apiece. Yelich, 41. Suarez, Eugenio Suarez, 38. Freddie Freeman, 36. Max Kepler, surprisingly, 35 there on for the AL. Nelson Cruz, 33. He missed a little bit of time. And then Gleyber Torres, all he does is hit him in bunches. I haven't looked at that list for a while. I knew that Soler was up there just because I saw something come by on Twitter the other day that he had moved into second, or maybe it was a game I was watching, but interesting. All right, back to this one. Sorry, did you mention Jorge Lopez and his amazingly discounted price? 5,000. We're probably going to see 45 pitches, 50 pitches from him tops would be my speculation. But do you like that sort of thing against the batters?
I don't really see getting there. The Orioles just aren't like they're not good, but they're just not that good of a matchup for opposing pitchers. Like the top of the order really is solid with VR, Alberto, who never strikes out, Mancini, Santander, Nunez, DJ Stewart's okay. It's you can rack up some strikeouts at the bottom with Chris Davis and Chance Sisco, but it's not like it's a cakewalk for guys. And Lopez isn't fully stretched out, like you said. He's not even the absolute minimum price, so I don't think that I'll really get there.
All right, we're going to make brief mention of this next game, but we're not going to break it down. It's game 2 of the Cincinnati St. Louis doubleheader. We literally don't know what they're going to do with their with their pitching, but I want to bring that up because Sonny Gray is currently sitting on a 9-game slate at 10,800. Adam, this is like you're in the clubhouse just waiting for the rest of the field to finish at this point.
Yeah, I've already sent my text messages and tweets making fun of my friend for losing the bet, and he's already admitted that I won the bet. So hopefully Sonny Gray just starts this game.
We will have to see. Right now it's written in pen, but it's erasable pen.
Right.
Let's get on to a game where we do know who is starting. That will be the Chicago White Sox heading into Atlanta. We have Dallas Keuchel, 9,600 on DraftKings. Price is going up. Seems to be finding his form, shaking off the rust. Pick your platitude, but his last 3 games have been phenomenal. He has gone a combined 19 innings. He has allowed 1 run on a solo shot. That was to Miami. He has 7 strikeouts in each of the last 3 games. That's nice to see. We don't always see that from him because he's generally more content to get the ground balls. But Atlanta is definitely front runner here for the NL East, and they are playing for additional playoff seeding. So they've been really running out. Keuchel, 111, 101, 98 pitches. I like Keuchel in this matchup because the White Sox, wait for it, are losing their DH. That means the pitcher's going to have to hit. Are you willing to pay the 9,600 for Keuchel? Would you prefer the $2,000 discount for Reynaldo Lopez?
Not super interested in either pitcher. I do think it's a fine spot for Keuchel. The White Sox losing their DH, as you said, is pretty appealing. But he's just not a good enough strikeout pitcher that I want to pay close to $10,000, especially on a slate where there are bats to pay up for. Granted, the mid-range of pitching isn't really very appealing either, but it's just really tough to get to Keuchel. I think if I'm taking that roster construction, there's a better chance that I just find the money for like a Strasburg or a Gray or something like that than pretty clearly overpay for Keuchel. And as far as Lopez goes, not the craziest play because of the slate. It's a really, really, really scary spot against Atlanta. We know Lopez has some home run issues, but he does also have strikeout stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a spot where you're rolling the dice in tournaments and hoping you get a good game from him. There's nothing that you're gonna point to and say this is a good spot for Reynaldo Lopez because, like I would prefer Dylan Bundy, but if I get some Lopez mixed in across 150 lineups, I think he at least has a ceiling at that price tag.
All right, next game's kind of interesting. Clayton Kershaw up at the top. He, as some people have been saying, does seem to be back. He is not Clayton effing Kershaw, but he is a reasonable facsimile of that. He's 11,700. That's going to make him really difficult to get to on DraftKings, especially with that Coors game. In his last 3 games, 12 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts, 10 strikeouts, 91 pitches, 89 pitches, 90 pitches. So he had 10 strikeouts on 90 pitches, 12 strikeouts on 91. That was against New York. And then at Miami, it was the Yankees. That is ceiling type performances for that number of pitches. He is going to be going against Arizona. As I mentioned, they are one of the top 3 teams by most metrics against lefties. Now, does that mean I want to take them against Kershaw? No. But it does mean I don't know how often Kershaw gets to what we need him to, which will be close to 27 to 30 points on DK to make this price palatable. What are your thoughts on Kershaw overall? And then you can talk about Robbie Ray.
Overall, I love Kershaw. I think that he is back. His slider has been much better over the last couple of months, and you've seen it directly translate into improved strikeout performance. The problem is twofold, and you got the both of them. For one, he's just really expensive on a slate where it's probably pretty tough to pay up for pitching roster construction wise. And for two, the Diamondbacks really don't strike out a lot. That's not to say that Kershaw can't pick up strikeouts in this matchup. It's just to say that on top of him being expensive, there is a lower probability of him racking up 15 strikeouts or something like that than there is in other matchups. So, and then also he generally is just going to get ownership because he's Clayton Kershaw. So all those things kind of working against him. It's a spot where if I look at a lineup and I have Clayton Kershaw in it, awesome. But I have a hard time imagining he's a priority for me just because of the price tag and the matchup. On the other side, Robbie Ray certainly has plenty of flaws. His walk percentage is an issue, but he does have the highest strikeout percentage on the entire slate at 31%. He's only 8,900 on DraftKings. That's a spot that I'm interested in tournaments because it just gives you such a high ceiling. Like there's a really good chance he disappoints just because the Dodgers are a tough matchup and he, outside of strikeouts, isn't the best pitcher. But he's priced where he is because of all of those flaws, kind of ignoring the fact that he strikes out almost a third of all batters that step into the box against him. So I think that it does give you a really high ceiling in tournaments because you can roster him and then still get good bats.
All right, here's the comparison. So this will be the 5th time Ray's starting against the Dodgers. Now the Dodgers have changed over their lineup a few times with various people that are hurt. Now it's Max Muncy. So we'll just have to see what they run out. They do have AJ Pollock back. They've got Justin Turner has been back for a while, and then they've got Chris Taylor back. So I didn't go back and look and see who played or didn't play in these games. But I did want to point out in the 4 starts, Ray has gone 24 in the 3rd innings. He has 34 strikeouts. That's the kind of upside that Adam's talking about. We know the Dodgers are a tough lineup. We know there's someone we don't want to tangle with. Yet here's a guy that has just mowed them down thus far. Does that mean anything for Saturday's game? No, not at all. But it just shows the upside that Robbie Ray does possess.
Right, exactly.
Heading on to Coors Field. Let's see. Oh, Joe Musgrove. We play him when he's cheap. Not in this matchup. On the other side, we have Tim Melville. How did I know it was Tim Melville, or just by seeing T Melville? Former Baltimore Oriole, I believe. What do you got here with Melville? I hadn't even realized he was up, but he's got 2 starts, 100 and 101 pitches in the 2 of them at Arizona and versus Atlanta. Been solid. That's an understatement. He's allowed 1 earned run. The Arizona game was in Chase Field. The Atlanta was in Coors Field. The 5 walks, a little bit concerning, but the 10 strikeouts in 12 innings, somewhat solid. Feels like probably a mirage, but what do you, I guess here's a better question. Does Melville or Musgrove turn you off of the respective hitters?
No. Neither one's a high strikeout guy. Melville at AAA this season had a 21.2% strikeout percentage. He had a high walk percentage just shy of 10%. The Pirates are just a good offense, especially against right-handed pitching. And then on the other side, Musgrove's a pretty decent pitcher, but also not a high strikeout guy. And the Rockies, not really a good offense, but they're affordable for a team in Coors. So neither pitcher scares me away. The one thing that I would throw out there is that if the Rockies are getting tons of ownership, as I expect they will, because they're clearly top value plays across the board, Musgrove at 6,600 is kind of interesting in tournaments just because he is good enough that he can get through this lineup. And when you look at the pitchers priced around him, you have Melville, you have Brock Burke in Texas, you have Dylan Peters against the Red Sox. You don't have anyone really in this price range that you look at, oh, I want to roster this guy, but it's a price range that's very useful in tournament lineups. And so it makes sense when you're trying to give yourself the easiest path to win a tournament to have Joe Musgrove in some lineups that don't have Rocky stacks, because if he does pitch well, you're getting those points, and a large percentage of your competition is not getting points.
Yeah, and the other thing it's going to do with your, shall we just call it the portfolio, your player portfolio, is it's going to make that number of teams that you, or percentage that you have Musgrove, you're not going to have Colorado. So you're automatically going to another team. So it's kind of like, I like the alliteration, but double differentiation, if you will. But it's kind of has a larger impact than one truly realizes. So it's not just, you had a decent outing from him and half the field crapped out. It's also got you spending dollars on another good set of hitters. And if they do well, it's kind of the triple witching hour. On to our next game. Speaking of triple witching hour, we have three pitchers we got to talk about here. Matt Whistler, who's going to go one inning, whether he wants to or not. He's going to be the opener for one of the 5,000 lefties that the Mariners have in their rotation. Tommy Milone's number is coming up against Texas. He's sort of intriguing just because he's going to go around 80 pitches probably. He also is a lefty. That does not bode well for Texas. This will be the fourth time he's going against him. The reason it doesn't bode well for Texas is they're missing a ton of their good hitters, and they're good. The remaining guys are not that great from the right side of the plate outside of Danny Santana. So Tommy Milone, 7,400, bit of a savings there. Brock Burke on the other side, 7,200. This will be his third start of the season. He gets to go against the Mariners. He is a lefty. The Mariners are going to run out a lot of lefties. Do you like either of these pitchers here, sort of in the mid-tier as you're shuffling through, trying to get the high-end hitters?
I have some mild interest in Tommy Milone. I wish he was starting, because then he would go deeper into the game. It's never really that appealing to roster a $7,400 pitcher that is probably going to throw 80 pitches. But at the same time, there's not a ton of great options in this game or on the slate, and Texas is just really, 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 really bad against left-handed pitching. So I prefer Bundy. If Ponce de Leon makes the start against Cincy, I probably prefer him. Maybe Logan Webb, probably Logan Webb, but Malone's certainly in that group of guys where I'm going to mix them in tournaments.
All right. Let's see. Speaking of Logan Webb, we're on to the 9 o'clock games. Just two to go. We have Joey Lucchesi, 9,100 going against San Francisco. Somewhat of an intriguing spot here. Major park upgrade. This one is in Oracle. This will be the fifth time he has gone against the Giants. Just looking at it, mediocre numbers against them. Do like to see the 25 strikeouts in 21 innings. He's allowed just one home run against them in that time frame. His numbers are about in line with his season-long averages, but I do like the fact that this is in San Francisco. On the other side, you had mentioned Logan Webb. I don't have much to add with that, other than I think, God, that 9,100 on Lucchesi means he's going to be very reasonable on. He's 38 on Yahoo. I really like him on Yahoo.
I agree. It's a pretty decent matchup against the Giants. It's really good for run prevention. It's not the best for strikeouts. Yeah. Lucchesi generally doesn't go really deep into games either, which is a problem where he's more expensive. But he is a good pitcher, and it is a really good park. So I can see getting to some of him.
All right, last game of the night. Another opener, another probable long reliever. Well, hello, Andrew Cashner. I wondered where you were. He has been in the bullpen here for, I almost said Baltimore. He's been in the bullpen here for Boston since being acquired from Baltimore, but banished to the bullpen is apropos. He will be the opener. He is, I don't know, still stretched out enough that it wouldn't shock me if he goes 40 or so pitches. But who knows how long he's going to last. Then you've got Brian Johnson coming in afterwards. I really don't care for, but I do like the Angels in this one. On the other side, Dylan Peters going against Boston. No, thank you. I do like the Boston righties just because Peters has allowed 5 home runs in his last 3 games and 7 in his last 5. I'm not playing these pitchers. Anything that takes you away from the hitters in this game.
Nope. I like the bats on both sides. The only thing The only negative that I'd point out about the Angels is just that the same issue with openers. Like, it's what you can kind of, people might look at it and say like, oh, Andrew Cashner is opening and he's followed by a bad pitcher in Brian Johnson. Andrew Cashner opening is different than Andrew Cashner starting. Like, he's going to be able to throw much harder, you would think, and just pitch differently. So I would just treat it more like we do with openers. Like, it's a reliever that probably is going to be pretty effective.
Yeah, that's an absolutely valid point. Let's just quickly take a look at FanDuel and Yahoo, just their player pools. We've got Kershaw at 11.5, Strasburg at 11.2, potentially Sonny Gray at 10.7, Robbie Ray at 94. You weren't really excited for Keuchel. He's at 84. And then with Casey, you were tepid on. He's 78. How would you rank the top three pitchers point per dollar on FanDuel or anybody else I missed or didn't mention?
I really like Lucchesi on FanDuel. So,
oh, okay. So he'd be the guy. He'd be one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to rank it because I don't have the FanDuel site open, so I don't have them listed in order. But
gotcha. So Lucchesi at 78. I'd say it's probably. Would you prefer Strasburg or Kershaw if you were going head to head?
11.2 or 11.5.
Yes.
That's really close. I guess Strasburg just because of
Miami. Yeah, and then last one, Sonny Gray. Assuming it's him, he's about 5% discount from those guys.
Still Strasburg against Miami if it's only a $500 discount.
Okay, let's get on over here to Yahoo. Let me filter by the main slate. Let's scroll down to the bottom, see if anybody pops out. Dylan Peters at 25, Jorge Lopez 25. Would you go with Tim Melville at 27?
No.
Logan Webb at 31?
Yes.
Reynaldo Lopez at 32?
Logan Webb at 31.
Right. Joe Musgrove at 33?
Logan Webb at 31.
Brock Burke at 35.
Logan Webb at 31.
All right. We already know you love Lucchesi at 38. Robbie Ray at 41.
Yeah, that's fine.
Dallas Keuchel at 39.
If you have to.
Okay. And then we have our top three again. Kershaw, 54. Strasburg, 51. Sonny Gray, 50.
Kershaw 54, Strasburg 51, Gray 50. So I think still just Strasburg, but right. I think that they're all good plays.
Yeah. I don't think there's bad plays amongst those. All right, there we go. Got you through our random multi-slate day. Of course, you can catch Adam and I 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. We will have more information. At least we'll know who will be starting game one and likely game two of that Cincy St. Louis doubleheader, and we should have some of the early lineups out. That will be the DFS strategy show. Definitely check that out. You can have a good chuckle because I didn't bring my good camera, so I'm in a hotel Wi-Fi room or hotel Wi-Fi on what looks like ancient technology, like back when they were transmitting video from the Gulf War and they had embedded reporters. So there we are. I am not in that situation. It just looks like. With that, you can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. You can find me on Twitter at EmacDFS. And of course, it is Asimo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.